WUJM, St. Petersburg, 99 Gems, The Bird.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Doctors in the House Health Show on 99.1 FM, WUJM, St. Petersburg Community Radio. We have an excellent program for you tonight. Please stay tuned. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Doctor in the House, your health show. Program about wellness, mental health, and disease prevention. I'm Dr. Morency, your host. Thank you for tuning in, 99.1 FM WGM, St. Petersburg, Florida, and online at 99gemstheberg.com. Please call us at 727-637-2416. The topic tonight is how to strengthen your spiritual foundation for optimum health. So this show is the third show in a series I'm doing in collaborations with Dr. Carolle, Jean-Murat, which deal with health challenges brought on by chronic stress in our daily life that leads often to chronic disease, which ultimately may be rooted deep into a weakened state foundation of our spiritual life. In fact, in our current healthcare paradigm in the U.S., rarely are disease etiologies, that is, causes, traced back to a psychological problem or let alone spiritual issue. This is the undertaking we have. There is undeniable evidence that the rate of chronic disease such as obesity, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and so on, including mental illness like depression, anxiety, suicide. The rate has been increasing at an epidemic proportion. And this is actually in spite of an arsenal of powerful drugs, new drugs, that's been on the market. In spite of the fact that more and more sophisticated new technology that can make really specific targeted diagnosis or cutting-edge surgical procedure, which would definitely make it so much easier to treat severe disease. So this is essentially what our series is about, to really look at how those issues intertwine. In our first show in this series, we talked about we explored the reality of chronic disease, chronic stress that is ever present in our daily life. We defined it, and we actually linked it to potential causation when we talk about chronic disease. In the second show last month, Dr. Carolle revealed herself to us, the audience and myself, as not only a top-notch OBGYN/primary care doc, which she's been, but more importantly, as a gifted, intuitive, caring, and vulnerable human being. In that second show, she forcefully and confidentially asserted the importance of, quote unquote, living our life in balance, mind, body, and soul, in order for us to achieve optimum health. In today's show, called How to Strengthen Your Spiritual Foundation for Optimum Health, we will be discussing how important and crucial a spiritual foundation is to our essence as human beings. Dr. Carolle, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Very good. So thank you again. Welcome back. We appreciate your expertise and your guidance in this field. We thank you. And before we go on, let me remind our audience, especially those new to the program who have not had the opportunity to hear us, let me just remind you of your credential a little bit. Dr. Carolle is a board-certified OBGYN and primary care specialist, and for the past few years, she works as an intuitive health consultant and is the director of an innovative type 2 diabetes remission program. She's also an author of many, many books. So we're privileged to have you here. And let's go to the question that you raised. What is spirituality, and more specifically, what is spiritual health?
Okay, our spiritual health to me is an integral part of who we are. It's our connection to the energy of a higher power. And it doesn't matter what it is, how we call it. As long as we're connected to something bigger than ourselves, that can be there 24/7, that we can count on, so we'll be more likely to. We are less difficulty when we encounter stress in our life, something we cannot avoid.
So that's our connection to the universe, really, to the energy.
To the energy of the universe, but for many they call it God.
Absolutely.
And then for Christian, I'm a Christian. I was raised in a Christian family. My grandmother, her connection is Jesus. So to her, the higher power energy was Jesus.
Okay.
And I have some Jewish patients, and then they are Adonai, which is God. So different depends.
So
on
we
the
have
person.
different spirituality, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
But they all mean the same thing, which is basically
Same thing.
It's one God, if we're going to use
One
that
God
name.
with different names. You know what? Let me tell you the metaphor I use. Is a cake with multiple slices, and the candle in the middle is God, and each slice, different cultures, different religions, different backgrounds, even different beliefs, will call it that higher power. And it doesn't matter, because I've been in medicine for over 5 decades. It doesn't matter how you call it, as long as there is that connection within your soul and that soul and that.
In other words, we are all the same human being, really.
We are.
Attached,
in deep.
Attached to spirituality. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Now, in your note, as we were preparing for this, you have a laundry list of what you call toxic emotion. And you actually have that list, and I can just quote a few. One of them is really, I'm looking at it, you said being angry at God, and more individually, people have an ability to forgive not only themselves but others. Difficulty, love, which is very crucial, loving oneself and loving others. Are those all toxic and more? But those are toxic emotions. Now, question is, are those toxic emotions really a contributing factor or responsible to a weakened spiritual foundation? But
the reason I say it's when I say you have a weakened foundation when you have those emotions.
Well, yeah. It's are they okay.
Yes, they are. When you are wicked, I'll give you an example. Say being angry at God, and then it's just like that. And it happens when, like, some people, they will lose a son. And then I see a patient coming to me, and they refer to me as a consultant, and she's hemorrhaging to death, and then she has diabetes that are under control. And one of the things, and I said to her, and she had a cross on her neck, and I said, "Oh, I see you have a cross. Do you pray?" And that's what happened. She said, "No, I don't pray because I'm angry at God. Why would my God take my son?" And then, but I said, "This is the time you need to pray." They said, "The harsher the pain, the more you pray." And so I had to remind her, and she happened to have a daughter. And I said, "You have a daughter, and you believe God has one son, and you're Christian? God has one son?" "Yes." And I said, "Then you're a sinner, because you have a daughter. God didn't have a daughter." And she smiled, and I had to explain to her. She was grieving because she felt guilty about the loss of her son, thinking she was responsible. She said, "A mother is not supposed to bury her son." And then I'm saying, then that's the time when you miss your son. That's the time you're going to pray. And that's the time you're going to get on your knees and pray. And I do that. And that office, I had that lady lay down, get on her knees and pray, because they have done everything for her. She was dying. She has uncontrolled diabetes on insulin. Her gums were rattling. She was in the verge of going to start eating up her heart and her kidney. What could I do for her? And I said then, and when I connected, because what would you do with somebody when science have done everything?
Correct.
And I said to her, and then because I was raised with my grandmother. My grandmother died at 87 because she decided, I'm tired, time for me to go. I've seen my father going into exile. I've seen us going through people being killed and murdered because of political situations. And then my grandmother was strong and stoic. And then one of the things that happened is just like, I decided, because I saw so many things, and I thought, oh, how can people get killed? How can this can happen? There is no God. Because if there was a God, God could never allow this to happen. And then it took me, then I'm with science. Science is the meaning of life for me, because you can see 2 and 2 is 4. You have all the studies, the biologies and everything. Then when I was having difficulty because of my gift of being healing and my gift of seeing, and sometimes praying with my patients and they would heal, you don't make money as a surgeon. So essentially, I had a panic attack when I was on the book tour, and I had a therapist, and then and she said to me, "That's your problem. You're relying on science, and then you come from a family of spiritual people and healers." And then that's what I had to go and we learned that connection. And then that's why then I end up leaving medicine, because when I found out most of the people who are having issues, 9.5 hours of the people who come to see me as a consultant were because they didn't have a spiritual connection. They were angry. There was no God. Whatever explaining they do, and also especially those who were abused as children. And then how would they believe? Because they prayed, God, help me, because they told them, go and pray, God will answer. No answer. So that's one of the reasons that they have all these toxic emotions. And yes.
So the toxic emotions essentially weaken our spirituality, our foundation to our sine qua non.
No, it's the other way around. I call it being weakened. It's because, how would I say? My grandmother has a strong spiritual background. She won't be angry. She won't be resentful. She forgives everybody. I have a strong spiritual connection.
No.
People. Yes.
A weak one. I mean, so the toxic emotion kind of weaken the foundation of
the consequence of a weak spiritual foundation.
Oh, it's the other way around.
Yes.
Okay.
When you have a weak spiritual foundation, then you will be plagued with these toxic emotions.
You're more susceptible to those toxic emotions.
Yes, and then you won't let go because, for example, you mentioned unforgiveness. I had a lot of the patient I see as a gynecologist have been molested or raped or harassed sexually, and then so they were so angry, they're so carrying that emotion, and then they can't forgive. And I say, you have to forgive the perpetrator.
Yeah.
But then they would say, how can I ever forgive that person? And then I'm saying, and I said, I had a patient, and she had a cross, and I said, do you pray? She said, yes. You say, Our Father? I say, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they do. I said, you really don't have any faith.
Okay, so
You really don't. Yes.
So let's clarify it. So it started with the spiritual foundation. So the more solid, your spiritual foundation, the healthier you are, you don't experience those toxic emotions.
Yes, and then you will be able to keep stress at bay.
So now
and we'll discuss all this in details. Yes.
But in turn, those toxic emotions are some of the root cause of the abnormal lab result, the chronic, quote unquote, chronic disease we talk about, the depressions, the anxiety. Okay.
Let me explain what are the toxic emotions we're talking about. Okay? For example, my patient, the one with diabetes, she was plagued with grief, anger, and she was angry, like we say, angry at God. And then difficulty, because you have to let go. Many times I would say you have to let go. You cannot be holding on to this because those are the emotions. So let me explain the toxic emotion. Whenever toxic emotion that means it keeps you in a constant state of stress. It's just like you have a car, constantly your foot on the pedal.
And that's the chronic stress we talked about earlier in the first show that sap your energy because it causes those release of those abnormal hormones in your system that really cause disease. Okay.
And then, that's why they're going to cause the abnormal test. So when you have an issue, you go to the doctor, they're going to measure some things. What they're measuring I call it like a termite eating you up, and you see the termite poop on your, on the floor. And so lab work essentially is measuring those poops.
Okay.
Yes.
So what are those folks who are really more, for whom it is challenging to really have a strong, solid spiritual foundation? What reason, people have? Yeah.
Okay. Then, I go back to Haiti, and I remember going back for many, many years. We have a small hospital, and I will go, and the people, they're not sick. They're not, they have a flu, and they don't have any chronic diseases, and then they don't have much money. But then I realize, what is the difference? People always ask, what is the difference between people here and people in Haiti where you go and work with them? I say they have strong faith. So they don't have anxiety, depression. They sleep well because they say, God, I leave it up to you. So, and then they will say, bon Dieu bon, God is good.
God is good.
Tomorrow will be a better day. And they live in the moment because they have that faith. So when I start, I'm saying all the patients who come to me and they have a problem from their hair falling to their toes and in between, I would say it's because they don't have that strong background, the strong spiritual foundation. Essentially, they're carrying themselves whenever there is a stress because we're constantly bombarded with stressors. The children, the money, the car, the traffic, every day. That's we don't have in places where we're isolated. And then the news, that's one thing, the news and the political groups and this and that. So all these are killing us. That's what's killing you.
Yeah.
So then when I try to realize it, because I've seen so many patients over the years, and then I need to understand because I write books and do my research and everything. And I came up with three things. And I said, number one, there were those who were raised in the family, religious family, but suffered from trauma, neglect, verbal, emotional, physical, sexual abuse as a child or as an adult and decided there is no God. That's what I did. How come I'm told to pray to God and He would not help me? He never intervened to protect me from being abused. If things just happen to me at any time, there is no God, and that's the decision. And so then, because I cannot trust they cannot trust their family because many times their own family was creating, was abusing them.
The conflict, yeah.
Yes, so abusing them, and then they have they don't have nobody to trust, and that's what happened. They have nobody that they can call upon. And I remember before my grandmother died, and I was at that stage. Oh no, you pray for me, Grandma. He said, Grandma, you pray for me. Pray for my patient. That's what the relationship we had. And she said, I am so sad that you don't have faith. You don't have, because something. This even Simon of Cyrene helped Jesus on the cross when he was getting weak. So you need that. So those are the first person. And the second out of the third three people, they have strong faith. But when something happens, and then they have cancer, say, God, you have abandoned me, you have forsaken me. And then like Irma, she believed in God. She didn't say there is no God. She was angry at God because they say, God, how did you take my only son?
Yeah.
Okay. And unfortunately,
how come children get sick?
How come children get sick? Yeah. How come there is no food? How come there is a
flood in there? Yes,
a
all
flood.
the disasters.
How come? Yeah. And then you have to realize it. It's just like you have to say things happen, and then you don't mix them together. It's not the cause and effect. And then the third portion is those who are raised in the family who do not believe in God or a supreme being. I live in California. I've seen many patients, and I said, because when they would come, because they're sick, because they're carrying themselves. They are their own Simon of Cyrene, and in their own faith. They are their own spiritual. They have it nowhere. And then I would say to them, do you believe in anything? And they would say, no.
Yeah.
I don't believe in anything. So, and then those are the people, when they come, they're facing an obstacle. That's what they crash.
Yes.
This
third category is very interesting to me, though. Don't people, from what you're saying, like, it seems like this is derived from your upbringing for being raised in a family where there's no belief in God. But aren't there
Yeah.
people who actually can make up the mind that they don't have anything that push them toward that belief?
You don't. You don't. There are very few, but the one who are, yes, they do. And then depends on how much support you have in your life.
Okay.
If everything is doing well.
Okay.
But the people who are sick.
Okay.
And I'm saying.
So that's the category you're talking
person?
about. Yeah.
Yes. Who is this person in front of me who are sick? Those are the ones who have nobody to trust.
Yeah.
And as human beings, we need somebody who can confide it. We need a friend. We need somebody.
Yeah.
Those people are totally emotional. And then, you know what is unfortunate? We are raising a bunch of the new generation have no connection. They don't have that. They don't go to church. They don't go this. They have that little machine in their hand. This is their connection. And then this is very sad because when things get tougher, let's say there is a blackout, you cannot charge that phone. What do you have?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing.
Yes, so those are the things, and it is not going to get any easier in the future.
The thing
it's
is
going to be bigger in this group, the third group, where they have nothing, they have no connection except with a phone, friends, Facebook. Yes, yes.
Well, people sometimes confuse really religion with spirituality. I mean, religion, you get a dictate, and there's a particular path you have to go. Well,
yes.
In spirituality, though. For instance, let me give you an example. I was basically raised in a family that, believe in going to church, but they were not necessarily religious. I don't recall early on in my age, my parents were going to church on a regular basis, but we as children, we had to go to church. So for me, I look at it as a young age, even after my first communion, as something to do socially for some reason. And then unfortunately, when I was growing up, the Mass was celebrated in Latin. And most of the time, for me, going to church was not really that inspiring. So, but I didn't really, I have my intuition, my belief, my feeling that there is something out there which is bigger. And I spent my entire youth searching, for that.
Yes.
And sometimes I envy those people who have last minute revelations, who just like that. So I wanted to make sense out of life. So luckily for me, I was guided by something. I have no idea.
Yes, and then let me add something. Of course, when I was growing up, the Mass was in Latin, and the priest at the back. It's back. You never see the face.
Well, exactly.
Yes.
That's what I meant by not inspiring, so to speak. The majority of the time, you're looking at his back, and he's mentioning those.
It's something that you don't understand.
Dominus Vobiscus, it's conspiritus, things like this. You say, as a kid, man, I have no idea what the heck that means,
Then I need to go back and talk more clarify about religion and spirituality. Like I said, when I say spirituality is what it is, your connection with a higher power, whatever it is. And then religion they have dogma, they have rules to follow.
Correct. Ideology as well. Yeah.
Yes, and ideology. I remember since the majority of people I see they are sick, are they in that category? They're angry at God, they don't pray, and all those things. Even though they were raised with spirituality, which is they're connected with Jesus. Let's say that's that person, like my grandmother. But then whenever there is something happening, they're totally disconnected.
Yeah.
So I remember like Elma, my patient, the lady they was sent to me was dying because she was hemorrhaging to death. And then I realized, that's one of the things I do work with people with diabetes now, because I say when they have a trauma, the loss of a son is not only the bleeding, but also there is the diabetes, there is the high cholesterol, high triglycerides, all those things that are happening at the same time. And then when I connect her, because they were giving her all those medications that are making her worse, when I have connected with that connection she had, because she had faith. So when you have faith that you'll be healed, and I said, that's the only thing, and there is nothing you can do for you. Science is killing you with all these medications.
I understand.
Your faith is going to heal you. But then I had to pray. And then I told her, even I had to get on your knees and say, Jesus, sweet Jesus, the Lord of the strong, help me, I'm weak, because she's Christian. So I am doing that. My Christian patients, they pray,
That's
and they get better.
That's their connection.
That's their
the
connection.
Particular spirituality. Okay.
But that's my spirituality.
Yeah.
And then the next time I had a patient who came out a place here, the healing place, and the lady happened to be Jewish. So I said to her, and then I'm saying we need to. So I had to ask her. I cannot tell a Jewish person to pray to Jesus. I cannot tell a Muslim to pray.
I understand.
Yes.
I understand that. So now there's
So it's for our listeners so they can understand it too.
Correct.
Okay.
So there are a couple of questions we have to get to because of the time, and one of them was quite interesting to me as a physician.
Yes.
So we're talking about the percentage of your sick patients over the years where the disease are essentially connected to a weak spiritual foundation.
Yes.
And so my question was that, and then how do you actually help them? Because we need to get that out of the way to understand what you do.
No, how are we going to help them? This is our show number 2.
Okay.
How to trust in it.
Okay.
Yes, that's. So today we're talking about.
What's the percentage though who have?
Yeah, I would say 95.
95. Okay.
95%.
Now.
And then I would say because the 5% they were in the car, they were physical, they were traumatized physically.
Okay.
Except because those one I have seen with the disease, but I would say generally 80%. 80% of this, because you're going to, it's such a broad, but to me as a gynecologist,
okay,
I would say those who come to me and bleeding, whatever they're having, 95%.
So
95%, yes.
Okay, so the how you help him going to be part of the next next show.
But
now,
let me tell you. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say then we already talked so far about the benefit. Those folks who have a strong spiritual foundation in terms of really not being affected by disease and that. So if you can comment on that briefly, because we're going to conclude pretty shortly here.
Oh, with our time?
Well, the question, we have half an hour, so that's unfortunate.
Okay, half an hour. How many minutes do we have left?
I'll take, we have about 2-3 minutes at the most.
Oh, 2-3 minutes. But anyway, like you said, let me conclude. Let's say, when you have a strong spiritual background, when you have a strong, solid foundation, you're less likely to have this toxic emotion. Those toxic emotions, they are the root cause of 80% of abnormal lab work, abnormal. When you have a condition, it's your body respond to that. And when you have a strong spiritual background, then you're not having those toxic emotions. You can, with a breath, because you're not holding revenge. I don't forgive myself, I don't forgive others, and you're worrying and you're having all these toxic emotions.
All right.
So essentially, that's what happened. And then that's what we will show in part 2 in our show. We're going to talk about what do we do? Yes.
In conclusion, when I'm listening to you, I hear this message, I can hear the voice of many, if not a majority of my patients usually ask me those difficult questions. How come you guys cannot fix my problem? How come do I have to take medication for the rest of my life? How come? I said to them, well, my answer to them is we are really doing the best we can, because in our current paradigm, really, a lot of times there's a promise. People, we advertise a lot. There's a promise that there's a quick fix out there for everything. In other words, the biggest really spiritual question is, how come we die? Well, if you have a life, you get a birth, you get a die. So a lot of time people will have time for them to let go because they may have a terminal disease, and they've been living in that constraint, limited life for a long time.
Yes.
Well, when you're going to die, this is the time to actually be free, so to speak.
Yes, you will be free. But in the meantime, like we're doing the show, we're showing people who are in the stress, how they can keep it at bay, how by their strong spiritual background, and how it can happen. And then they can have a good quality of life.
And that's exactly. A
quality of life. I have a quality of life. I am happy. I'm 71, going on 72. I don't take any medication.
I will let
because I'm, yes.
I will let you brag. Not never mind. No,
No, it's not black. Guess what?
listen.
Wait, Dr. Morency.
Okay.
I have a patient. My patient, she's 92 years old. She was 86 years old when she runs. She came to visit me. We spent some time together. She's 92 years old, and she drives a 7-seater van. And then when she was leaving yesterday, and I saw a license plate said Torch 84.
Yeah.
And I said, they just gave it to you like that. She said, no, when I was 86 years old, I was in.
No.
I carried a torch in the Olympics.
There's plenty example of that. But
Yes.
let me conclude by saying that we're going to announce the next show, which is essentially part 2 of this show, where and how to strengthen our spirituality. And
Yes.
you're going to talk about the tools to
Yes.
a strong spirituality. All right.
Yes.
Did you have any homework people need to do as far as after listening to this show?
And then, so one of the things I would say, ask yourself, what kind of spiritual issue do you have? Do you keep grudges? Do you
Okay.
you not surrender?
Okay.
People know know their issues.
What's
Just
in
ask
there?
yourself, what are they? And then we'll give you the answer on the next show.
Dr. Carolle,
Yes.
sorry for the time we have, but it's the time we have. So thank you again for bringing this to our attention as a physician and a gifted
A spiritual healer.
As a physician, a spiritual healer, intuitive
me.
healer, intuitive teacher. We appreciate having you on the show. And essentially, folks, thank you for listening, for having the attention to this. If you want to learn more about Dr. Carolle, you can visit at the website, which is drcarolle.com. It's DRCAROLLE. And also, you can purchase a book. There's a book she wrote, which is fascinating, Forgiving Yourself and Others, How to Unleash Your Future by Freeing Yourself from Past Trauma, and which is available on the website. And for us, thank you for your attention. There's a copy of the first show we did on stress available now on my YouTube channel, and it's there. And the second show will be there very soon. Eventually, this show will be, for those of you who missed or who have not had a chance to complete it, it will be on YouTube channel very soon. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. And Dr. Carolle, have a good week, good time. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Cara Festo Radio. 99 Gems, The Berg.